I come up here to debate issues, and they come up here to debate me and my character. It's all they have.
Well, Dave Smith, the reason that your character gets called into question is because of the propaganda and half-truths that you tell. Yeah, you have no understanding of the history there. You're just some comedian that comes on the scene and says, what, I read, Whitney Webb's book. I read something that said Israel funds Hamas. Let's get it straight here. Let me educate you. Let me enlighten you. Because the Palestinian Liberation Organization under Yasser Arafat, were you even alive then? Do you know about that history? Doubtful. Because if you did, you wouldn't say stupid shit. Like that Israel funds Hamas. No. Israel, as I said, cares more about the Palestinians than anybody does. Believe it or not. And furthermore, let's get it straight here, you assholes that keep carrying on about Israel is genociding children. All of that reporting is coming from Hamas. Do you use common sense? Do you sit back? Or are you so damn biased and so hateful at Israel that you just grab onto anything? Because that is what you do. And that is the reason your character is called into question. Israel does not fund Hamas. But Israel controls the border because they left Gaza. But they have to control the border because throughout the history, and I will show you to enlighten you, there has been constant attacks at them. So they do control the border, but they want to make sure that money that comes in is going towards aid for the Palestinians, because many times it's just given to Hamas. And believe me, Hamas doesn't give a shit about the Palestinians, just like you don't give a shit about them. I'm telling you, when the fallout of this happens, what people will find out is the people that cared about the Palestinians the most was Israel. They don't want to go after civilians. But again, there is no media except what Hamas reports. And for 20 years in my history of researching this, I mean, going back 20 years ago and reading up on it, the propaganda machine is always Hamas, or it's the PLO, all being funded by Iran. So let's take Qatar, because that's the money. Like Qatar's wanted to send money in to help humanitarian efforts and food and all that stuff. Israel wants to make sure it gets to the Palestinians. That's the reason they decide what goes in and what doesn't. Because it depends on who it's coming from. Can you understand that, Dave Smith? Do you have a brain cell to understand that? No, instead, you run and you tell an entire group of young people that Israel funds Hamas. No, Iran does. And Israel tries heavily to stop it. But let me show you some stats to enlighten you. So, Dave Smith, let me enlighten you about the time when you weren't even alive yet. But when the Jews did live in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, okay? And yet there were these constant suicide bombers, the youngest being 12 and the oldest being 21. Because Yasser Arafat, who was the head of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, who was an Egyptian, and that was totally funded by Iran. Fact, absolute fact, unlike who you spew half-truths and not even really truths in that do you get right. So what would happen is a 12-year-old, they would indoctrinate to put explosives around his chest and walk onto a bus just so some Jews could be blown up. However, Palestinians would get killed too. Believe me, just like Hamas doesn't give a shit about the Palestinians, just like you don't give a shit about them either. Yeah, none of you supposed people that care about the Palestinians ever want to mention how they were rising up against Hamas, but they get killed. Yeah, you'd think if you cared so much about them, Dave Smith, you might want to mention that, huh? No, but your whole mission is so selfish and so nasty because all you care about is destroying Israel. That's it. That's it. It's obvious common sense, something you lack. So, understand something. This is why the Jews moved out of Gaza, because shopping malls were being blown up, buildings, neighborhoods, bus bombings, and all because the Iran-funded Palestinian Liberation Organization was indoctrinating Palestinians to blow up people. So to have peace, the Jews moved out. Okay, gave up the area, but they control the border because everything bad can come across that border. And it has gone on to be things that gets into the terrorists like Hamas's hands, and then they bomb Israel. So that's the reason they don't fund Hamas, you liar. They do not. The whole reason they control the money going in is to make sure it doesn't go to Hamas. Great way to spin it, Dave Smith. So, just so people are aware, Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, okay? You can see views of extremist groups, percentage of favorable. Jordan, 47% favorable of extremist groups. This is suicide bombers. Egypt, 45, Palestinian territory, 42, Lebanon, Indonesia, Pakistan, Turkey. Yeah, you don't see Saudi Arabia up there. You may want to mention that to Tucker. Yeah, just because Tucker seems to want to act like Saudi Arabia. No, Saudi Arabia does not want this going on either, okay? Because they have class, okay? Unlike Dave Smith. I can't stand this he is lying so much, and the very fact that this is what Charlie Kirk surrounds himself with just tells you who Charlie Kirk's character is. And just a side note, can somebody pass this on to Tucker? Because Tucker seems to think, no, it's just Sunni Muslims that come after Americans. Yeah, no, apparently what Tucker doesn't realize, don't know how he doesn't know it, given the fact that he's been in media all his life. But Hezbollah is Shia Muslims, and they've killed many Americans. Yeah, so please pass that along to Tucker, since I guess he just totally forgot about that. Because Hezbollah has been around at least 20 years. The vast majority of suicide bombers targeting buses and stores were young Palestinians, typically their late teens or early 20s. Between 1993 and 2002, over 135 Palestinian suicide bombers carried out attacks targeting Israeli civilians and soldiers. Do you ever mention any of this? Do you ever actually research, Dave Smith? Or do you just push your propaganda because you're hell-bent on wanting to destroy Israel? Yeah, so in your quest to destroy Israel, there are some of us out here that do know this history way better than you. And I'm not some highly educated person. I just do my own research and did it long before you were born. Buses and transportation hubs were the most common targets, making up more than half of all suicide bombings in that period. You know what you don't understand, Dave Smith, is probably because you weren't born then, you weren't alive, okay, is that this was a daily occurrence. Now that Israel has their Iron Dome, it's different. You don't hear about it as much, but they're constantly, this has been going on since the beginning, all because some Jews bought some land. They didn't take anybody's land. They bought settlements and lived and built on them and created a flourishing economy. But that wasn't good enough for Iran and you terrorists that want to support Iran. During the second Intifada, 2000-2005, there were approximately 16 suicide attacks carried out by 127 bombers. Yeah, all funded by Iran. So while you carry on You jackasses that carry on. And literally, I'm not saying that to be mean. You are the jackass party. You just pretend like you're on the right side, not even close, okay? Because if you were on the right side, you'd know the truth about this. Instead, you, Charlie Kirk and all of Turning Point, want to convince young people of your propaganda bullshit.